Do we begin the talk, or do we have any other formality to beginning?
No, Maharaj, you can start. Maharaj.
I can start.
Yes.
Wow. My namaste, my greetings to everybody. I'm very pleased and I'm thankful that I've been invited to share some thoughts on leadership excellence as based on Swami Vivekananda's teachings. So I'll begin with a small invocation. This is paying my tributes, respects to Swami Vivekananda, whose ideas we shall be discussing for next an hour or so. The program is nearly for 2 hours. I'll leave the last portion of the duration to question answers and to discussions in order to understand the subject better. So I will make it very informal. So it's not going to be very academic presentation because I am not an academician either. Being a monk, I have my own approach to understanding these issues, and that's what I'll be presenting with you. So let me begin with the invocation. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine Tatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityuduma Amritam Gamaya. We are here today to spend some time together for a very sacred discussion. A sacred discussion in the Hindu tradition is known as Satsanga. So this Satsanga would be focused on what constitutes a leader and leadership, particularly based on Swami Vivekananda's perspective of life, his views, his teachings, his example. So, not that all aspects of leadership we will be covering. We shall basically cover the philosophy, the driving force behind leadership. So leadership is something which most people like to aspire for. That's because we find in the society, they have contributed a lot for the development of the society. And the leaders wield a lot of power, money, and if they are been successful and they have been very exemplary, lot of respect as well. The opposite is also there when people do not respect their leaders either, but they are forced to be under them for whatever reasons. So leadership is not same as occupying a post. So occupying a post is something which is within a given system, within a hierarchy. It's just like getting into a bus, and by virtue of the fact that no other seat was vacant, you go and occupy the driver's seat, doesn't make you a driver. That only makes you somebody who is sitting on this chair. Likewise, there have been occasions, and we all have experienced it.
Maharaj, 1 minute, Maharaj, please. 1 minute, Maharaj. Sir, it has been Mute. Yes, Maharaj. Please, Maharaj.
Am I audible?
Yes, Maharaj. Please.
So it's just like getting into the bus, and the bus needs a proper driving. The driver should not be driving it too fast, nor should he be committing any accidents.
Oh.
So the driver has a great role to play in the safety of the people, where they are going, when they will reach the destination. In the same way, just because somebody occupies a position does not really make him leader. He has a position which from a distance we say, yes, it is a leader's position, but he should have certain qualities which should make him a leader, which make him a leader. So leadership and position, there are not always same. People do bow down before a position, because in a hierarchy, in a given system, in a system of going up from down to above, one has to attend to certain obedience. But then true leadership does not make you all the time forced to look after or present themselves. Rather, they are given a position wherein you have to you feel like offering a lot to, or offering your everything to that leader, because you are convinced of his intentions, you are convinced of his methods, you are convinced of his goodness. So the leadership and position. There's an ancient, Sanskrit verse which says, "Avastha pujyate rajan, na shariri na sharirinaha." Ordinary people worship position. They neither worship the or respect the person who is occupying the position, nor do they respect na shariri na sharirinaha, one who is inside the body, which means they don't respect even the divine present in human beings, or they don't respect the person's body or his physical frame either. They are interested in power. And since you happen to occupy that power, they respect you. That's not what leadership is about. So leadership is something more than just being powerful. Though power is important, it's a tool. But being powerful does not make you a true leader either. So let's make this clear in our mind. Now comes the understanding. What is the meaning of leader? The Sanskrit word for leader is Nayaka, because it's a term used to describe certain section of society also. But what it meant here is not that, but Nayaka means one who takes you further, takes you forward. So Nayaka or Neta. In Sanskrita, in Hindi, in many of the North Indian languages, is Neta. Niyate, one who takes you forward, is called Neta, Nayak. It's just like the engine in a train. So wherever the engine goes, the train has to follow it. Likewise, wherever the leader goes, the others have to follow it. In the Bhagavad Gita, we say, Sri Krishna refers to this by one of the chapters, the shloka comes, that whatever a person of excellence does, others follow it. Sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanuvartate. Whatever he presents as the pramanya, which means authentic, he says this is to be done, others will follow him. Yadyada charati shreshtaha tattat devettaro janasaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanuvartate. So we see this happening in our in lives also. Sometimes somebody who is not even a true leader, but just he is famous, he is very powerful. People go bow down to him or to his things. Like recently somebody, one of the top sports figure, he just kept one bottle of water aside, and that sent a strong message. And those people who are using that, millions of dollars were lost. So leaders wield a lot of power. But then again comes the question: leadership, does it mean that you become the prime minister? Does it mean the chief minister or minister? Does leadership mean political leadership? So should we say that leadership is related to politics? I think that would be very limited view of the term leadership. The term leadership actually means how much responsible you are, how much of those qualities you have. So these things are required everywhere. We need leaders. Leaders are required everywhere. It's not just in politics. It's not only those who are in the government or governing or those who are in the administration. Leaders are there everywhere. In a house, we have a leader. Mother and father are the leader. Sometimes, if they are not strong, their parents, which means the children's grandparents are the leaders. So, whosoever takes you, in a, let's say, there's a feast, and in the feast, you have number of cooks. For cooks, also there is a leader, which means who directs that do this and do it in a particular fashion, do it on within this time limit, prepare these many items and prepare them in this particular way. So he becomes a leader for them. So the leader is also a thinker, is a person who is a visionary, who thinks of future. Thinking of future is common to all of us. We all think of future, but here it's more specific. He thinks in terms of how I can help others, how can I take a particular uh, project, organization, or responsibility, or a department further. We need these leadership qualities in every field of life. Most people are only struggling for position. Getting a position is not going to make you a leader. Whereas leadership will come only if you have developed yourself. You have grown within. One of the leadership experts, I think it is John Welch, who said that at first you have to grow yourself. And if you want to become a leader, you have to grow. And then once you have grown, then you have to help others grow themselves. It's not that I become grown up and now I am interested only in my personal success, personal accumulation of wealth, and trying to fill up my life with all kinds of consumer goods and seek some kind of a social security. More than that, these things have got a place, but then more than that, he is interested in others' well-being. He thinks of things from a larger angle. He has to fulfill the needs of many people. Many of these needs are expressed, many of them are not expressed. So he has to handle both. He has to handle many irrational demands of the people also. So, there's a story is told of a person who was heading a department, and he was a holy person. So somebody saw him all the time smiling, being very good. Then they asked, how did you attain this stage? People come with all kinds of issues, but we find that you are not at all disturbed in anything. Then he said, oh, you don't know. Before I came here, before I came into this kind of a leadership position, I was a counter boy selling saris in a sari shop. You know what happens in a sari shop? So there are customers, women, basically women, who come and ask you to take out a sari, then another sari, and then they don't like and they put everything back. Then another customer comes. So there's a lot of patience is required in managing that counter. So he had developed that inner resilience to face all kinds of things in life. So a leadership, according to Swami Vivekananda, is a responsibility. And he even went to the extent of saying that all people cannot be leaders. Some people do their best when they lead. He said that. And he also said that some people do their best when they are led, which means they do their best when somebody else guides them. They are in such a way they have been made. Another thing is, as I said, leaders have to grow and then help others grow. There's an instance about it. Swami Vivekananda, as you know, he passed away quite early. He was not even he had not completed his 40th year, and he was 39 and a half. And just before his passing away, a few days before, he is supposed to have said that the shadows of a big tree will not let smaller trees grow. So I must go to make room for others. Meaning that he had no clinging to the position of being a leader. So he was a great leader himself, and who led by example, who led by instruction, who led by showing the guidance to others. At the same time, he was also not attached to that leadership. Sometimes many of these great leaders, they seem to bring a bad name to the very idea of leadership when they don't give up. The circumstances are such, maybe they have lost their faculties, or they are very weak, they are extremely sick, but they would not give up. Not because they are very dedicated, not because they're very committed. Of course, that's a great quality if they have one, but it's because they find that giving up is not easy. They're not able to give up. So giving up is what is very important as part of the leadership. Swami Vivekananda, in his Karma Yoga lecture, speaks of this important traits which human beings should develop. And that is that we must be able to do our things with complete dedication, complete sense of commitment and concentration, being being willing to give ourselves, give the best of ourselves. But at the same time, we must reserve the capacity to withdraw, capacity to give up, say, no, I don't want this, I'm not interested in this. So both these things are very important. Swami Vivekananda has given certain instructions as to how one can become a leader. And I shall read to you some of these quotations, some of these wonderful statements which Swamiji has made. But at the same time, I would also be referring to incidents from his life and from the lives of other great people as to how these qualities can be or should be brought into our application. One of the qualities of the leaders which Swami Vivekananda has spoken is that he should not be just giving some instructions. He must come down to the level of helping others. Swami Vivekananda, one place he says, he actually plays a pun on a word used in North Indian languages, meaning Sardar. The word Sardar could mean, of course, a person who belongs to the Sikh community, the Punjabi Sikh community. But the word Sardar could also mean, and which is the actual popular meaning, which means that one who is a leader, Sardar. So Swamiji played the pun on that and said, one who is a Sirdar can be a Sardar. So the pun is Sirdar and Sardar. So what's the difference? So Sardar is one who is a leader, one who leads, he's a Sardar. And the Sirdar is one who is willing to give his head, Sirdar, one who can give his head. Giving up the head means willing to sacrifice himself. So it's just like somebody who has to do some very great thing, let's say in military. He has something, so he should be willing to sacrifice himself. So a leader must be willing to sacrifice himself. Swamiji recalled one wonderful anecdote in this respect. He said that an English friend of mine named General Strong was in India during the Sepoy Mutiny. You know, the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. So nowadays, this is called the first struggle of the Indian freedom or freedom struggle from the Britishers. In 1857, it was mainly spread over to begin with in UP. It started with Meerut and of course the Kanpur city where I am present and a few other places. So right here, some 20 kilometers from the ashram where I am speaking from, there's a small township, not even a township, a large village kind of place, which comes under the municipal corporation of Kanpur city. That place is called Bittur. It is on the banks of Ganga. So there's a sacred river is flowing, and just on the banks of that is the Bittur. That's where this Sepoy mutiny, which Swamiji is referring to, or what we call as the the first war of freedom that took place. So the place where the Peshwas lived, it is known as the Bajirao second Peshwa. That place where he lived, he had a cantonment where Rani Lakshmi Bai got training as a little girl. Now there is a big memorial in its place, a large fort-like structure with a beautiful garden and statues, 3 or 4 important figures who played an important role in that. Now somebody is referring to this. He says that an English friend of mine named General Strong was in India during the Sepoy mutiny. He used to tell many stories about it. One day in the course of conversation, I asked him how it was that the sepoys, who had enough of guns, ammunition, and provisions at their disposal, and were also trained veterans, came to suffer such a defeat. He replied that the leaders among them, instead of advancing forward, only kept shouting from a safe position in the rear, "Fight on, brave lads," and so forth. But unless the commanding officer goes ahead and faces death, the rank and file will never fight with heart. It is the same in every branch. Captain must sacrifice his head. They say, if you can lay down your life for a cause, then only you can be a leader. But we all want to be leaders without making the necessary sacrifice. But the result is zero. Nobody listens to us. This is an important thing to learn, that if you want to be a leader, Swami Vivekananda says, you must be willing to sacrifice. So one cannot be sitting in one's own comfort zone, unwilling to come out of it and trying to not do anything but only issue instructions. People never get inspired, motivated, and motivating others is one of the major tasks of a leader. So leader is not about just getting more money, more resources, more properties, and more financial assets and other things. As they say, you have 3 M's. There is the money, there is the men, and then there's the material. So managing material, managing money is rather easier. What's difficult is managing men. So this managing men means how do you bring those men to do something which you want them to do, which means to how to motivate them. So Swamiji said you must come down to the practical level and try to help others. So such examples are there in Swamiji's own life. For instance, see, Swamiji had intense sense of compassion for others. But this compassion should not be mistaken as a weak man's compassion. Sometimes we are weak and we think we are very compassionate. But in reality, it would have been better if we had been stronger and been able to take a decision. There's a funny story about it. I'll tell about Swamiji's anecdotes after that. The story is this, that there was this man who was standing on the, it had been raining heavily and he was standing near a pond. He was in rather bad shape. Somebody was passing by and they said, this man is standing in a bad shape and it's not looking good. He said, what are you doing? He was having a rod in his hand. He said, what are you doing? He said, catching fish. Oh, did you get any right now? He said, no, come with me. So he brought him home, gave him a good meals. And as he was going, the man asked that person, so how many fish do you think till now you have got? He said, this is the 10th one, which means he has been showing his so-called poverty to people and earning their help, which is not what we should. We should rather not be very compassionate in that sense. We should be truly compassionate. We should be willing to help others. So Swamiji himself showed it in his life. Say, when Swamiji said that you should learn, you should have compassion for the poor, he actually meant it. When during his times when he was traveling around the country, there's an interesting anecdote about that. If somebody is speaking, can you please mute yourself? Yes. So the thing was that he was waiting on the on a platform, and somehow seeing his sense of scholarship, his bright personality, his wonderful eyes, and his holy demeanor, many were attracted to him. So as he was sitting on that platform, on the railway platform, many people came and started asking him questions. So many questions, so many discussions. It went on and on for more than 3 days or 2 days, 2.5 days. And then there was this poor man who approached him. He said, Swamiji, can I ask you something? Swamiji said, yes. He said, I see that you are sitting here and constantly interacting with people, answering their questions, but I haven't seen you eating. Will you not eat? It seems you have not eaten for long. Swamiji said, yes, I have not eaten. He said, shall I bring that? Swamiji said, go and bring it immediately. He said, but then I will bring all the provisions. I'll give you because I belong to a lower caste. If I cook something and you will eat, the people in the society will be after me. Swamiji became very angry. He said, what do you mean by that? Whatever you do, whatever cooking you do, I will eat that. Such fine heart that you have, such feeling that you have, that makes up for everything. So look at the deep feeling Swamiji had for others and how he practiced it in his life. So similarly, many times we tell others, you do this, but we ourselves don't want to do. When many times we say, let us all, we have to come on time. Let's say this is one thing. And then what is actually meant is that you all come on time. We ourselves don't want to come on time. Very often we instructions which lie in what we call as we is meant for others. Hello, now and then there are people who are unmuting. Yes, maybe the person who is doing the administration kindly mute all the listeners speakers so that we don't have any disturbance. So we should um, we should learn to how to put into practice, put into reality, and lead by example. This is the one first quality which Swamiji has spoken of. Another great quality of leadership. Particularly, Swamiji was concerned about lack of leadership in India. That he said is because many of us have been under a colonial mindset. So we have developed a kind of uh, uh, slavish mentality. Where now, what is the quality of a slavish mentality? Swamiji says slaves are generally very jealous of each other. If they find that somebody is making more progress than them, immediately they want to react to that and want to put it down. It is just like you have the proverbial case of that the sea animal which see things which just trying to pull it down, pull down each other. They don't get into, they don't go forward at all. So this one quality is very important that you must overcome. Swamiji says this. He says, three men cannot act in concrete, in concert, concrete together in India for 5 minutes. Each one struggles for power, and in the long run, the whole organization comes to grave. Oh Lord, when will we learn to be, when we learn not to be jealous of each other? So this is one quality of a genuine leader, a leader who is really going to do good to others, that he should free himself from jealousy. Now, how does the jealousy come? This is a very profound human emotion. In fact, this emotion is seen in animals also. Sometimes you see in the pet animals also. So what is jealousy if you explain it in simple terms? Jealousy means what you have is the same thing I also would like to have. But I feel unhappy that you have it earlier than me or you have more than me. So I find that you are very learned. So I feel jealous of you. I find that you are either more learned because your quantity is more, or you have become more well known because of your learning, which I have not become. So jealousy is a kind of feeling of lack. I lack something which you have. So I find that you have got something where it could be wealth, it could be learning, it could be fame, it could be possessions, it could be anything, which I also want, but I may not be expressing it. Or maybe I express it, but I feel that why should you get it? It's a kind of a narrowing down of our mental compass or mental horizon, where we become very narrow-minded. We want to only feel that my success is more important than the others. It is actually not accepting the ways of life. There are certain ways of life which we all have to learn to accept one day or the other. We have no choice in that. It's all mandatory. And that mandatory thing is that we should be able to accept others. It's just like the teacher. A teacher feels happy if his student becomes more successful than him, if he's true teacher. But if he is a very self-centered man, always interested in his own self-glory, he feels sad that his own student has become, become more progressive or gone ahead of him. But one of the virtues which is required in order to become a noble person is that we must feel happy at others' happiness. We must feel happy that somebody has progressed more than me. It is a very important quality of a true leader. The leader is all the time jealous, then he becomes partial and he becomes violent. He therefore takes unwise decisions. He goes in the wrong direction. It's very important that he does not get affected by this strong emotion of jealousy. Especially in India, we often forget of the larger vision of life. Say, what's good for the country? What's good for the large number of people? What's good for our culture. That's more important than simply being aware of or feeling of my own success, my own glory, my own name and fame. Sri Ramakrishna used to give an example. Years ago, when I was in Chennai, I had a visitor from United States, an elderly lady who had been doing a book on meditation centers in Chennai. It's very interesting how these people travel all the way from US to do that. So as part of the some initial discussions which we were having, we had a recorded interview. She said one thing. She said, "Is it good to be intellectual, or is it not good to be intellectual? Because I found some people are not encouraging you to do intellectual studies. So what's your take on this? What do you think about it?" So I said, my understanding is what Sri Ramakrishna says. Sri Ramakrishna says, so there are people who are like vultures. You have seen vultures. They can fly very high into the sky. They could be some 8 kilometers up into the sky. Six, they are almost invisible from the earth. Small dot somewhere in the sky. They have that capacity. But what's more important than this capacity of flying very high is the sharp eyesight they're possessed with. Even at that height, they can recognize a rotten piece of flesh or a dead rat somewhere on the earth where they're flying. And the moment they find that, they come rushing down to take that because that's their food. So Sri Ramakrishna would say, there are many people who are like these vultures. So they may talk big things, they may issue big statements, they may use a very beautiful language, very interesting language, very impressive way of presentation. But where their mind is set, that's more important. Often we find that their mind is set on money, fame, or personal glorification, although their language and what their presentation is something different. So what is important is not to become a vulture of that type. Similarly, when you are doing intellectual studies, our intellectual studies may help us to become a good intelligent, intellectual person, which is good. But the point is, what do we want as a result of it? A person can speak very well on Advaita Vedanta, he can speak very well on Bhakti traditions, or he can speak on something else equally very elevating. But at the end of it, you see, he's interested only in gathering more amount, more money, or more means of enjoyment, which means it's just like Karaschatu bharasya veda, natu chandanasya. So this means a donkey, he has been burdened with sandalwood, but he doesn't care. He doesn't know what sandalwood is. He knows only that he is carrying a burden or some weight he is carrying on his back. Likewise, many times we may talk good things, we may be very much inspired to say things, but deep within, we are actually just interested in those few beats of success or worldly success. So that must not become our goals. That's another great second quality which Swamiji has spoken of. Another thing about leadership, to really make you a true leader, is that we must be able to here Swamiji says that I'll read that to you. That will make it very clear. Can a leader be made? No, a leader is born. And it's a very difficult task to take on the role of a leader. One must be a servant of servants and must accommodate 1,000 minds. There must not be shade of jealousy or selfishness. Then you are a leader, says Swami Vivekananda. So first thing is that Swamiji mentions that can a leader be made? This is a question we all have to think. Can leader be made? We are all listening to this talk, or we are discussing this with the hope that all of us uh, will make the leader that is hidden in us shine forth. That's true that we all want that, but Swamiji has a view about it. He says a leader is born, which means there are certain qualities, certain traits which a person is born with. He becomes a better leader. Swamiji never said that a leader cannot be made, but a person who is born with certain qualities, maybe these qualities, as we all understand in our tradition, he had been developing in the earlier lives. And now he has attained certain perfection in these qualities when he has come to this life. And the result is that he has become an extraordinary leader. So leadership, a leader is not just that he has certain qualities, but there is some. It's also because that somebody, the leader has certain invisible side of him. It's just like the one of the very famous book is the Red Book on Leadership by Mr. Avadhesh Singh. He mentions this, that often leaders are like the iceberg. You have seen the iceberg. You must have seen some movie, or physically maybe you have seen that. The iceberg is only a top of the tip of the iceberg is visible. It could be as big as 500 meters high up into the sky. But down beneath, there could be around 4 or 5 miles, which is lying, submerged in the water. So what's visible in the top, maybe only a small portion, but what is lying deep into his unconscious, or what is lying deep within where his real making has happened as a leader is much more than what's visible. So leader can be made, but what's more important is a leader is born with certain qualities. A very important statement which Swamiji makes here is that one must be a servant of servants and must accommodate 1,000 minds. This is most difficult, that to accommodate others' mind. So people around us, so you don't become leader without a follower. You need to have a follower, then only you can be a leader. So followers means the people who are not leaders, who are around you, with whom you have to work, or from whom you have to take the work. Suppose you had a kitchen and you have number of cooks around you, the cleaners around you, suppliers around you. You have the people who serve in the dining hall. So you are a leader among all of them. It means that you have to accommodate their minds. The followers are human beings whom we lead, or who are our followers, so to say, or who are our colleagues. Human beings are not always logical. Sometimes they're very irrational, very emotional. Their needs look very childish. So you have to attend to that. Swamiji makes a statement here that a leader must accommodate 1,000 minds. If you have 1,000 people around you, you have to accommodate them, which means you have to give place for them. It's a big art. Leadership is an art. It's not just some idea of where you have the two things which are happening. That is, either it is right or whether it is wrong. A binary view of life. Either it can be this way or it can be that way. Need not be. It could be in between somewhere. So this in between somewhere is what a leader should be able to understand. As some of you might have heard, one of the closest expression of leadership qualities which Swamiji speaks of can be seen in the Japanese type of leadership. And they say there are two types of leadership. I understand that some of you must be knowing about, you must have read or you must be pursuing your studies in leadership. But let me mention this. So despite the fact that you know, let me share or reiterate this important thing. So you have the American style, which is like building a house with the same size bricks. So you have a brick, let's say 6 by 3, 6 inches by 3 inches, or 9 inches by 5 inches. whatever be the size of the brick. So you have all the bricks. So you go on putting one above other, and a wall is ready. And then you make your house out of it, make a room out of it. That's called the American style of leadership or management. Then there's the Japanese type. The Japanese type is not the square or a well-sized, well-sized brick. It is like any size brick. It could be slightly tilted this way. It could have a sharp edge here. It could be slightly differently shaped. Having found that, now you have to locate its place where it can be placed, where it can be set. So although you need a brick, but it's not of your size, but still you find a place for it. That's what the great leadership quality would actually result in, that you must be able to find a place for everybody. I think it's a serious thought we must give to us. Today in India, we practice more or less the American type of leadership, but it's better that we should also understand the Japanese approach to it. So the first thing is that we must understand this, that human beings are not very rational. They are many times very emotional, very logical, but you must be able to accommodate all. That's a great quality. And Swamiji says, there must not be a shade of jealousy or selfishness. Then you are a leader. So as I said in the beginning, it's not that you don't continue to be occupying a position. You will still be occupying a position, but you may not have the leadership qualities. In order to have the leadership quality, this is one of the important qualities, that you should not have jealousy or selfishness. Imagine this. If you have selfishness, if you have jealousy, then the person whom you are handling as a leader is likely to suffer. You may be creating troubles for him. You may be harassing him. A lot of high-handedness. Then we have deviated from true leadership. A true leadership, as ideally being said, is the one where you grow and you let others grow, where you learn to sacrifice. Siradar is Sardar. So that is to be remembered in mind. I'll refer to another quality which Swami Vivekananda refers to when he's speaking of leadership. All of us have experienced it. And as long as we live together, as long as we have a community, a society, an institution, a group of people around us, these things all will come to us. There are a couple of teachings of Swamiji in this regard. When we live with each other, one thing that often happens is just like, putting so many vessels together. When you put the vessels together, you handle them, they hit each other, the clang sound comes. So likewise, when we live together, there are moments of misunderstanding, of our sharp edges getting smoothened. Let me explain this. One of our monks used to refer to this fact that if you go to this North Indian great rivers, particularly let's say Yamuna and Ganga Yamuna, when you're coming down from when they're coming down from the Himalayas, the great Ganga, what you would observe is that most of the stones on the banks of Ganga here and there, or inside the river, whenever you come across, they are round by shape. So they are not having any sharp edges. There could be slightly elongated or slightly shorter, bigger, but all of them are round. Not exactly like football, but they're round, they're smooth. So how does this happen? Or why does this happen? It is said because when there are some stones which fall into the river and they travel along the river, they hit in different places. And as a result, all their sharp edges are removed and they become so smooth. And so much of water has passed over them that makes them very smooth stones. And if you go further into Narmada and the river called Gandaki in Nepal, you have almost every now and then coming up with small Shivalingas whom they worship. So the message is this, that all of us have got some sharp edges. When our sharp edges get hit with other sharp edges, we often end up by criticizing others, by becoming bitter, resentful. So a leader must be very careful about it. At least he must not allow any resentment to enter into his mind. See, after all, leadership is a lonely job. As it is said, it's lonely at the top. If you are a leader, which means you're at the top, you have to take decisions. It's very lonely. You are responsible for whatever decisions you have taken. You can't be laying the fault to somebody else, or you can't pass on the buck to somebody else and says, "Well, I have no." You have played your role. You have to you have learned to accept it. So Swamiji says this: be do not look into the faults of others. You cannot judge a man by his fault. Do not recognize wickedness in others. Wickedness is ignorance. Wickedness is weakness. It's very easy to search for faults, but the characteristics of a saint lies in looking for merits. Tale-bearing, reporting scandals about others should be altogether eschewed. I think leadership is a great responsibility in terms of character building also. We have to see that when we hear something negative about somebody, we need not indulge in immediate character assassination. We must learn how to handle these situations. There are occasions when man slips down from his ideal or from his being the status of a human being. But how do you handle that? We often say, "Oh, he has slipped and I have not slipped, and therefore I am very great." Please wait. Don't be in a hurry to declare yourself great. There may be some other occasion where you will slip off in such a way that the person whom you say that he has slipped or he has done some terrible thing, he would pale into insignificance compared to what you have done. So when we see somebody has done something wrong, we need not become very proud and say, "Oh, I am all right. I am very perfect." We need not be into that kind of a wrong idea. We should accept that, yes, our is human, poor being is slipped. So as a leader, I have a responsibility that we must be able to take a strong position. We must be able to take a punitive action. We must be able to, if you have to dismiss somebody, you have to remove somebody, that we must be able to do without carrying any resentment within our heart. Because we have to remember, he's also a human being. He slipped. He fell from the path of ethics somewhere. So I have all sympathy. I all pray that may he stand up on his humanity again, on his divinity again. But in the practical world, it doesn't mean that I must keep him. It's very important that a leader should have the strength to take strong decisions. If he is not able to take strong decisions, he's just like a body without bones. Think of it. Can you be just mass of flesh without bones? You cannot sit. We are all sitting erect because of the bones, because we have the spine. And the spine, it's hard, something hard. Must be able to take a hard decision. So what is very important is that we should be able to have a combination of head and heart. This idea of combining head and heart is to be further added a hand also. So leadership is training of our faculties. First, we have to grow ourselves. Then we can help others grow. Another way of looking at leadership is that a leader must be constantly updating himself. In today's world, where the research projects or research that is happening in different wide fields of life, be it the researches that are happening with regard to making of a shoe or making of new valves for the heart or developing new gadgets for electronic medical assistant or artificial intelligence coming into picture, we all have to learn to update ourselves. A leader who does not update himself slowly becomes irrelevant. So in order to be a meaningful leader, we must keep our door of knowledge always open. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, as long as I live, so long do I learn. So whole life is a learning experience. Whole life. It's not that my now learning has ended. One who says that this learning has ended, he has got into a very stationary mindset. Rather, we must learn to have a very growth mindset. The growth mindset means I am willing to learn. We need to learn new things. And if a person can be always willing to learn new things, he will not be caught up into many of the wrong decisions. So that's very important thing that Swamiji has mentioned here. Very important in the aspect which I just now read about from this thing, that we must be able to withstand others' faults. I remember a story from Sri Ramakrishna as to how do we handle others' faults. Because as a leader, you have to do that. You have to handle your own faults first. Handling your own faults means trying to overcome them, trying to be very honest with yourself. So leadership is about developing yourself, and that development, self-development, manifests into the job which a leader takes up. And very important thing in that is that he should be able to handle the evil or bad in the right way. That is what story says that. The story is that there was this snake who was ferocious and he would bite without much provocation. So people were afraid, they were keeping away from him. Till one day a monk goes there and he has some charm. He controls the snake and tells him, why do you bite others? Why do you kill others? Rather, you should be able to live your own life without doing this. I will give you a mantra. You chant that mantra. I'll see you after a year. So saying, the holy man goes away. The snake, now he doesn't go out. He doesn't bite. So one day he's going out for getting his food, when some people saw it's the same snake, but he's not biting now. So they just took him from the tail and swirled him around and threw him against a stone. And the he was very badly hurt. He was not killed. So he entered into his bill and went away. So after a year, when the holy man came, people said that snake is dead now. He said, no, how can that be? I have given him a mantra. In that mantra, he cannot really die. So he goes and calls up, and the snake comes. And then seeing that he has become very weak, the holy man says, why have you become weak? He tells that people do like this, so I've stopped biting them. Then the holy man smiles and says, I asked you not to bite, but I did not ask you not to hiss. You must keep the evil people away through hissing. So this hissing is also a very important part of our life. Hissing in the sense, you must not get carried away by the evil people's influence or their power. So this is one great quality which we learn from the story, the moral of the story, and that is that we must not hurt others. It's very important that you don't create any kind of harm to anyone. This is ahimsa paramo dharma. But at the same time, we have the uh, notion of not getting harmed by others also. That's also very important. Finally, already been for an hour now. So finally, another few minutes, I will give a pause to what I have to say. Then we'll have question answers. We have interaction. Very important finally is that a leader must have compassion in his heart. In his Karma Yoga lectures, Swami Vivekananda makes a very significant observation. He says there are two forces in life. One is called might, another is called mercy. So sometimes we exercise our might, we forget the mercy. We should not do that. Sometimes it is a mercy that is important. I'll give an illustration from our own past president of India, Dr. Abdul Kalam ji. He was an epitome of many of these leadership qualities. No wonder that he was the people's president. But here is an incident which shows how do you separate or how do you harmonize these two things, that is might and mercy. Might means power. So you are a leader, you have the power. But tomorrow you may not have the power also. It's the nature of power. As Acharya Shankara says, Ma kuru dhana jana yauvana garvam arati nimeshat kala sarvam. Don't be proud of your dhana jana yauvana. Dhana means your money, jana means your power or people, connectivity to the people, and yauvanam, your state of being strong, vigorous, young, beautiful, etc. He says, don't be proud of them. Arati nimesha, they can simply be taken away by kala, by time, by the time spirit. Anytime anyone can die. It's not start to sound any negative note, but it's the reality of life. So one must not misuse. They say if you want to test a man, don't give him adversity, give him power. We will know what sort of character does he have, how does he handle power. So there is this beautiful incident. The Mr. Kalam, when he was the president of India, and he lived in the Rashtrapati Bhavan in Delhi. And one day it so happened the room where he lived started leaking at night and it was raining. So he called up his private secretary and he immediately rushed and arranged another room to which he shifted. Now this is a power. You need assistance and you are the president and people come and help you. But the next thing is very important to observe. Mr. Kalam asked his assistant to see him next morning in the office times. So the poor man was frightened to death. He said, oh God, now what's going to happen? Because here the president of India, of all people, his room should be leaking. I don't know what kind of punishment I'm going to get. Anyway, when he went there, he was in for surprise when Kalamji asked him, look, yesterday you shifted me because it was leaking. My room was leaking there and you safely shifted me to the next room. But then in this campus where I live, the Rashtrapati Bhavan campus, it's a huge campus, more than 300 acres of land. There are many houses in the Rashtrapati state. There are many employees there, hundreds of employees. There are so many families living. Now, tell me how the state of their residences are. Are they in good condition? So I want you to go and summarize, to survey everything and give me a report. So he went around, they surveyed all the houses and they found they're in really bad shape. There's disrepair. So Kalamji sanctioned around a few crore rupees to repair them and also to build fresh a few quarters. And that's how he leveraged his own experience for the good of others. So you have the power, you have experienced something, but you do for the good of others. Swami Vivekananda, when he was in the West, we all know that he spoke at the Parliament of Religions. After that, he was given a very big welcome, and Swamiji was given a luxurious room to sleep at night. In the morning, when they went to his room, they found Swamiji was sleeping on the floor, and his pillow was wet with his tears. So they were very much upset at what wrong have we done. When they asked Swamiji, did our arrangements were not all right? To which Swamiji said, no, it's not the question of your arrangements. As you gave me this luxurious place to stay, my mind went to those millions of people in India who are poor, who are lacking basic amenities of life, who are hungry, who are starving. Then I remembered where I am in this luxurious apartment. It deeply hurt me that while I am enjoying like this, or I have been asked, I've been given these things, there are so many who are suffering. I could not control my emotions. And that's how whole night Swamiji was weeping. This is a leader who can feel for others. You know, Swamiji says, a person who, having been educated at the cost of others, pays not the least attention or heed to their needs, is a traitor. So think of it, how many of us are really genuinely grateful for what we have received? Many of us are not grateful. Not only we are not grateful, we become more greedy. We don't give back to the society what we achieve. So a leader must learn to think in a larger way, in a bigger, he must have a vision as to what he wants to give to society and to himself and to the people around him. So these are a few thoughts which I thought of sharing with you about leadership excellence as we find in Swamiji's ideas. I think I've spoken quite a bit now. I invite any of our friends who are online, if there are any aspects of what we have discussed to be discussed, you are welcome to ask any question. Thank you very much.
Session is open for discussion. You can ask Swamiji any queries or clarifications.
Swamiji,
Yes.
This is Shivaji from Buldhana, Maharashtra. I am very much impressful with your example of snake. But above that, in this modern world, how to balance all these things, we are quite in a fix. The example of snake, I am very much impressed. Yes, Swamiji. But above that, we face some problems in this.
You know, finally, we must ask ourselves, what do we want? What is it that we need? Am I willing to sacrifice and withstand all the consequences? Suppose I take a decision, a strong decision. Am I willing to face that? If I am able to face that, good. Go ahead with your decision. If you say I am not able to face it, then you continue to be where you are. You continue to still make compromises, still do things which are not right. Then there's no way for you. Now, this is one thing which, handling corruption, handling things which are not honest around us, or we are made to do things which are not as per our conscience, right? So how do we manage that? That's a big art. So this leadership is basically an art, is a skill. In that skill, I must be able to, how do I practice this? Maybe I begin I begin my journey, then I will be endowed with some new insight. A new confidence will come, a new sense of clarity will come. But let me begin. Let me begin. Many times we don't begin, we just keep thinking this snake thing, which I just referred to, which means I must understand that sometimes by not being self-protected, I am not really doing good to others. I must be self-protective. But at the same time, I must not harm anybody. I must be able to take a decision, take a stand. If I am able to, if I want to take a stand, well, I must be willing to pay for it. So I will suggest, please read Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga book thoroughly. There's a wonderful book, small book. It is in English and Hindi, it's in Marathi, it's in other languages. So try to read those 8 lectures. Swamiji has given 8 lectures on Karma Yoga, analyzing on different aspects of human life. So sometimes, how do we handle evil in life? So evil comes in different forms. So instead of more, putting attention on the external world, I have to set that person right, I have to set that thing right. More than that, we must pay attention to ourselves. The more we have grown, the more we will be able to handle situations in a mature manner. That's a big problem. We just jump into setting the situations right, and then suddenly we are, again left with very little resources, self-resources. So instead of that, let us try to develop ourselves and try to do whatever we can do. I knew a gentleman who is no more in Belgavi, in North Karnataka. So he used to run a small industry, and he used to say, I was not an honest man earlier. I have earlier given a lot of, bribe and even told lies. Then one day he read Swami Vivekananda's teachings. Somehow it struck a chord in his mind. And he started practicing that. He made a rule. He said, I will neither receive any gift, nor will I give any gift to anybody. So that's the practical implication of this. And to begin with, he had difficult times, but then continued. He, in fact, became a very successful industrialist. He's no more. He had a small industry. I think his daughter is managing that in Belgavi. So we have people who are put into practice, but we must have courage and must always update ourselves, read and think and try to meditate, calm your mind. You will have greater clarity as to what I can do, how I can do things. You will come across a lot of inspiration and insight through that.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Namaste.
I will.
Sir, may I?
Yes.
Namaste, Swamiji. Swamiji, desire is the main cause for sorrow. Now, the main question is how to control that desire. In each and every step of life, we are selfish and we aim for the desire, some way or the other. Now, how to have a control of it, Swamiji?
I know the answer which I have to give, but I'm just thinking, how do I put in the words that should be connected to your understanding? So I may know the answer, but that doesn't really make the difference. What's important is, when we say we have desire, what does it mean? Let us analyze desire. What is desire? The term desire or ichha or kama in Sanskrit, it means that I lack something. So let me first of all not give up all desires. The first step towards overcoming our desires is not to give up all desires to begin with, but try to cultivate good desires and let go those which are harmful desires. Let me also try to restrict myself to what I call as need and let go what is greed. So there are two things. One is need and there is greed. I was talking to an elderly lady one day. She's past 70. She lived in US for several decades and now she's back to India. She made a very remarkable statement. She said, my needs are very few. And you know, Swami, she said, needs are here. Think of it. Needs are here, which means what we are thinking as need. There are people who think that they cannot live without a Mercedes car. And there are people who think if they get a cycle, they're quite happy, they're quite satisfied. So it's the thinking that's making a big difference. I'm not setting aside the need for good vehicles or good mobiles or automobiles. No, they have their place. The point is that what we are requiring here. So our needs, we must try to, we have to fulfill our needs, but we must try to control our greed. You remember the famous statement by Mahatma Gandhi. He said that there is enough in this world to meet the needs of every human being, but there is not enough in this world to meet the greed of even one single person. Because greed has got no limit. You go on asking, you go on wanting, you go on accumulating as if there is a big bottomless hole within us. More wealth, more money, more fame. There's no end to that. More power, and above all, more life. Then only I can enjoy all these things. And more health. But health and power and the life, we all know, they all have limitation. So we become frustrated. I want to, let's somebody says, I want to enjoy more and more Mysore Pak or any of these sweets. But now doctor says, you have got so much of diabetes, you should not touch this. So I have desire, but now my health is restricting me. So to begin with, we must come down to the need level, try to identify many things which we have in our lives which are not our needs, but they are simply because we have seen others having it, or we have seen in cinema, which means in the YouTube or in the social media being glorified. So I have developed that feeling that I need to have that. So I must set my my views towards it, my way of understanding it better. And then as a result, finally, I'll come to a time when even what I call as good desires, and I'll not be interested in that also. But that's a very, very advanced stage. I would not go into the discussion about it, but I will mention this, that people who have even gone beyond their so-called good desires, they are like living gods. They are living only for others. They have absolutely no selfish desire. And this unselfishness makes them nothing but a living God. So let us keep this in mind. And desires need to be trained, need to be restricted. An unbridled desire, some psychologists say, no, it will, if you don't fulfill the desires, then it will lead to some psychological reaction. Whereas the Indian way of looking at psychology is, no, certain desires must be properly channeled. They must be given another direction. Then only we can have a proper healthy mind also. So we try to understand desires, try to understand our greed and differentiate them from our need and fulfill that. And above all, let our desires be towards our self-development, desire to help others, desire to serve others, desire to learn more, to have a refined understanding of life, of our own culture, our own traditions. That's also a desire, but that's a very healthy desire. Sri Ramakrishna used to call it as Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. So we might say both are Maya, both are like kind of illusion, but one leads to freedom, which is Vidya Maya, and that is which leads to bondage, which is Avidya Maya. So that's how we can look at it.
Dhanyawad.
Namaskar.
Mr. Dansing Saini, you can ask Swami.
Yeah, Namaskar Swamiji.
Namaskar.
I am very thankful. After listening your lecture, I am little recharged. Actually, my question is, so there are so many leaders, political leader, spiritual leader, and a small society leader. And one leader is the self leader actually. So self leader means so how to control the minds. So that is also a leadership quality. So my question is, to become a leader, we need certain energy, power. So to become the leadership of ourselves, or I can say mind, how can we increase the power or energy so that we can become, we can control our mind nicely?
So let me restate your question. What you seem to say is that self-mastery is itself is a kind of a leadership. And how do we get that energy, that drive, that motivation to do that?
Yeah.
Yes. So this is what is called in Sanskrit as Vyakulata. Sri Ramakrishna called it as Vyakulata. Vyakulata means an aspiration for something higher. So how do I develop that aspiration for something higher? That will come only if I have done enough understanding, enough analysis, enough discrimination or viveka as to what this world can give me. Once I know this is what this world can give me, so this is not worth having my aspiration for. Rather, my aspiration should be towards my inner world. And that inner world, the more I will seek, the more I will begin to get a joy in doing that. The joy of self-development, the joy of inner development. So that itself will keep me going. It will be like a self-propelling or self-supporting system. So it's very important that we must try to further strengthen our Vyakulata by reading, by meditating on what we read about those people who have attained that self-mastery. You read their struggle, you read about their story, you read about how they fought with their temptations, with their laziness, and how hardworking they were. So this is called positive energy, which comes by reading the lives of great people, their examples, their anecdotes about them, and also meditating on certain great spiritual texts like Bhagavad Gita. If you read the Gita regularly, you'll find a lot of inspiration. I quoted that Yadyada charati shreshthas tattad devet tarojana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanuvartate. So this is from the Gita. So keep thinking of that. You will come across a new meaning in that. So very important thing is that we will get that energy, we'll get that motivation when we constantly fuel it. And that fueling comes from satsanga or thinking about holy thoughts, bringing a change in our mindset, change the way we want to live our lives. That's how we can keep it going.
Yeah, thank you very much, Swamiji. Actually, so I have another question, just not question, this is just a clarification. So is there any online program from Ramakrishna Mutt for making the association with them?
You could try our Hyderabad Ramakrishna Mutt. They hold a lot of online programs from the Human Excellence Institute. So
Okay.
they have a Swami Vivekananda Human Excellence Institute. They conduct a lot of online programs. So you can get connected
Okay.
with them.
Okay, thank you very much, Swamiji.
Swamiji,
Swami,
Pranam.
Swamiji, one more question, Swamiji.
Yes.
Swamiji Pranam.
Namaste.
Swamiji, I have a question. Whenever I am praying in front of God, I am the devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, and I got initiation from Ramakrishna Mission, and so during praying time, why mana is not sthira, mana sthira? Why these things are not happening? Always, whenever I'm praying, at that time, different type of thoughts are striking me, and I'm away from this mainstream. Always different college problem. This problem always coming whenever I'm doing the japa. Why these things are happening? I'm trying to concentrate. Till now, the problem is existing.
So this is a question which is asked in the Bhagavad Gita as well. The language is different, but the question is same. Shri Krishna is asked by Arjuna that my mind is as restless as the air, as the wind. Vayo riva sudushkaram. How to control the mind, which is always moving, which is restless, which is jumping, which is difficult to discipline or to control. Then Shri Krishna answers it that it is so. What you're saying is true. First of all, Shri Krishna does not scold him saying, oh, what you're telling is not true. He tells you're right. But then he also tells him that through abhyasa and through vairagya, we can control the mind. Now, let me spend some time discussing with you these two terms, vairagya and abhyasa. So people often get frightened when they hear the word vairagya. They think, oh, does it mean becoming a monk? No. Vairagya is a basic necessity of life. Unless you have certain vairagya in your life, you'll be almost like a madman. So certain detachment, certain amount of detachment in life is very, very essential. Let us put it this way also, in a little more lighter way. Suppose you have a guest in your house and you receive him. Whenever he comes, you have a friend. Whenever he comes, you are a good hospitable person. You're very warm, a lot of warmth in your hospitality, and you offer him a seat, and you offer him coffee, and you offer him some biscuits, and you have discussions, and he feels very satisfied and leaves. In due course, you learn from somebody that the person whom you have been entertaining is not the right person. And then you investigate and you find, oh, really, it's not good. Let me not keep much friendship with him. But then you have a social decorum. So you don't want to tell him, stop coming to my house. So you start showing signs of disinterest. So next time when he comes, you make the tea, but the tea is not that very good. Maybe instead of 4 biscuits, you keep 2 biscuits. And then slowly you start showing disinterest in the discussions that you have had. In due course, the person develops, he gets a feeling, no, I'm not welcome here. So good enough, he stops coming. Now apply this to your thoughts. Your thoughts are your guests. Whenever they come, you take very good care of them. You say, oh, very good, you have come. My thoughts about my college. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Here is a coffee, which means I say, very good, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. So the result is that the thoughts find it very pleasant to come to you. So instead of that, if we develop a certain amount of vairagya, before you sit for your meditation, before you try to meditate, as you said, as per the instructions you have received at the time of initiation, tell yourself one thing. I am now switching off all my social, official identities. So suppose you are a professor. I don't want to go into details. Suppose you are a professor and you also
Yes.
department of the head somewhere,
Yes, sir.
and you have certain, you have this identity. So when a person has that identity, then only he can be restless about what he is thinking. Suppose that identity itself goes away, then where is the question of having any connection with that? Look here, I am not really bothered that's happening. What is happening in a small street in Israel or in Saudi Arabia or somewhere in Washington? It doesn't bother to me at all, though it may be something bad, because I am not present there. Something happens in my street here, I'm bothered about it. So the sense of identification, self-identification, when you sit for meditation, first try to change your self-identification. Tell yourself, well, I am not the professor, I am not this, I am not that. We all have so many roles. We have so many identities. We have to handle so many identities. So in today's world, you have the Aadhaar card is one identity. Your PAN number is another identity, PAN number of the bank. Then you have got your license, that's an identity. Then you have, let's say, book something on Amazon, you have given one ID. So many identities we have. So what we are, the base of this identity is my ego. So let me try to disassociate myself with my own ego. Then what I've got, then what will I be? The question comes, if I disassociate myself with my ego, what shall I be? Or what will remain and who will remain? So that's the important point in our sadhana. We should feel that we are divine. I'm not this ego. The ego is a sense of separation, and therefore a sense of either inferiority or superiority. I am separate from you, then only I have an ego. When I feel one with you, I have not have an ego. So let us try to come to the point when we sit for our prayers, when we sit for our meditation, let us first switch off these, or rather keep aside all these things with you. Then you develop a sense of freedom. Then you sit and do your meditation and follow the instructions that you have been given. Try this.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Do we have any more questions?
Anybody else?
Swamiji, what
Yes.
quality of a leader give up? What's the meaning of it? Give up means by means of what, Swamiji? Never, a leader never give up. One word, one quote says that. You are the quality of leaders. You say that give up. What about the give up? What
Give
things
up.
yeah.
Okay, I'll spend some time understanding the word give up. So if we can understand this word give up in two senses.
Okay.
One sense is to give up means to give up your lower tendencies. Let's say you give up jealousy, you give up ego, you give up sense of negative competition or comparison. You give up those things which are coming in way of your life, way of your leadership. But at the same time, you don't give up. One side is you give up. Other side is
Yeah.
you don't give up your resilience, which means the power with which you are leading something. Suppose you are the manager of a of a company, you have tremendous strength to carry on. Like the great Shivaji Maharaj, Maharaj, how much he never gave up, despite the fact that the Mughals tried to, do so many harmful things to him. He never gave up. Similarly, you have many other great fighters who never gave up. They continue, despite failures, despite slippings, despite many negative things happening. They never give up. That makes the whole difference. When Swami Vivekananda went to the West in the beginning, he also had very hard moments because he was the first Hindu monk there, and nobody knew him there. Nobody knew about India either. India was a strange land there. And the Christian missionaries had said that it was a land which was very bad. And people believed in that. It's a land of snake charmers, superstitions, and all that. So Swamiji had to face very difficult times, because the people who sent him with all good intentions did not even provide him sufficient money. To begin with, it was okay. Later on, he had a lot of difficulties. Still, he became very well known. So for a few months, he had truly the tough time. At that time, he said, whatever it is, I will not give up. I will die in this cold. I will die in this state of starvation even. But I will not give up. I'll keep fighting. It is because of this that we could get our Swami Vivekananda there. And so this you'll find in the case of many people who have that inner resources. They don't give it up. And they continue despite all obstacles. So the word give up is to be seen in both these slides. So give up that which is coming as a negative thing, which takes away your energy, takes away your positive outlook towards life. But don't give up fighting. Don't give up going forward. That's how we can look at it.
So for your, thank you, Swamiji.
Namaskar.
Sir, may I ask another question if anybody are not ready?
Yes.
Swamiji, I want to ask a question.
Yes.
My name is Eunice. I actually posted the question in the chat box, but I think it went unnoticed. So I want to ask this. As you mentioned earlier, that every person should practice certain amount of detachment. So please throw light into this thought that I have. I feel that, there are, leaders and spiritual leaders especially, they mention this a lot of times to have a better mental health and spiritual health. It is advisable to practice that detachment. But what I understand is the more a person practices detachment, he himself or he or she would be at peace, would definitely enjoy peace. But then what happens is we live in this world where we have a lot of trivial and material matters to deal with on our day-to-day life. So if one person is behaving or is practicing detachment, people around him, they suffer, is what I understand, because people around him, if one person is practicing detachment, the other people around him has to suffer because they cannot, if everyone behaves detached, things will not be taken care of. I feel that when we are detached, that emotional connection doesn't stay, and we do not do things, or we do not work with our heart. We put our heart and emotions only when we feel attached, not detached. So what happens if I behave detached? My spouse or my family members or my colleagues, they will have to suffer to take care of things and to deal with things more seriously. So that is what I feel, or I think. I would request you to throw light into this thought, sir.
You're right in one sense that when a person becomes detached in this manner, often people take advantage of him, or there's a certain sense of dryness around us. So let's try to understand detachment from another angle. What is detachment? Detached from what? Suppose I am sitting in a railway bogie. My bogie gets detached from the engine. I'm in trouble. So I am being detached from what when I'm speaking in a spiritual sense? Does it mean that I become irresponsible? Does it mean that I am completely not interested in anything in this world? This could be a case of depression also. Let us not allow that to happen. So many of these spiritual insights become clear to us when we see the examples of great spiritual beings. So I will quote here an example from the life, the personality of Holy Mother Sharda Devi. You all know that Sri Krishna was married, and his consort was called Holy Mother, or a Sacred Mother, Sharda Devi. She was simply called Mother Sharda Devi. So the devotees have added the word holy. So it's a Holy Mother. Now, she had an extraordinary personality, despite the fact that she was from a village. So a leader need not be very educated either. Many of the leaders have not been very academically very well proficient. So, but she was a great leader. She had an extraordinary sense, where she had extraordinary sense of understanding of problems of life. So she was extremely detached. At the same time, she was extremely compassionate. So how does this happen? As I understand it, Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga lectures, he says, what is the true meaning of detachment? He says self-abnegation. The word abnegation means effacement. So when I say that I am detached, it's not that I am detached from others. It really means becoming detached from my own ego or my own self-centered nature. Very important that we must have detachment from that. So if we can develop that, now in Holy Mother's life, we see that. She was very detached to many of her personal things, but she was extremely compassionate and concerned about others. I think this is a very important thing. I remember a funny incident. There was this young man who came to one of our monks, and he had some personal issue, and he was extremely emotionally upset. He was in tears. Then, now how to deal with somebody who is in that state? We should not be giving him much advice either. Just listen to him what he wants to say. So after that, that monk just by the by asked him, "Have you read something from Swami Vivekananda's teachings?" And the young man, in still state of emotions, he said, yes, I have read Vivekananda here and there. It's wonderful. Do you remember anything? He said, yes. Swami Vivekananda said, feel for others, feel my children, feel. And saying this, he started weeping further. So the Swamiji laughed at him and corrected him and said, when Swami Vivekananda said feel, he's not telling you to become self-pity. It means feel for others, feel for the poor people, those who are deprived. So that is how we have to understand that. Particularly the chapter called True Detachment means that you completely, true detachment means complete self-abnegation. So if you read that, it will be like, there was a message here in the chat box. It comes and disappears very fast. So even we are not able to read. So whosoever had sent it, please read it.
Sasmita, you have sent a message. Kindly read it.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Namaskar, Swamiji.
Namaskar.
Actually, my age is 45 years. I do take my responsibility of my family. I am not married. I do all my responsibility, and my guru is Sai Baba. I take him my guru. I do my all the duties. I am working in a government college, assistant professor. As my regular duty, I do also sadhana, work for the needy persons and help them anywhere they can need any kind of help. I get the true happiness from that. So for me, I think that is the true sadhana. I am doing all these things, not attached to anything. That is the true attachment.
Continue with that thing which is giving you a sense of inner peace. Continue with that. There is nothing to be questioned about it all. One thing is that we must keep the goal very clear. You have some clarity, but you can always think about the goal is to
Reach the God.
to realize our own divine nature.
Yes, sir.
That's the goal, right? So this goal has to be stated in hundreds of different ways. The Bhagavad Gita itself states this
Sir,
goal
I
in several.
every day read Gita. Every day I learn one sloka every day. My mind is different and get different meaning each sloka every day.
Good. True. That's true. So a person, Swami Vivekananda used to say, if a person has practiced 5 ideas in life, he is more learned than somebody who has memorized the whole library.
Yes,
So
sir.
you are trying to practice one idea, that's good, more than enough. More than enough. Please continue. All the best wishes for that.
Also in my college now, they can give me a subject teaching to students essence of Indian traditional knowledge. Now
Good.
the students' minds are diverted. They are not traditional knowledge, how they can, like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Veda, Upanishad. Also, I can teach them.
Good. So you can also take help of many books which are published from the Ramakrishna Mission regarding this. In
Yes, sir.
Bhubaneswar, we have the ashram. You can take help from there also.
Okay, sir.
Near the Lingaraj Swami temple, it is there.
Yes, sir. I learned that.
Very good. So do we have more questions?
Mr. Sukumar, have you tried asking one? Okay. If there are no more questions, shall we wind up the session? Maharaj, Namaste Maharaj, and we are blessed to have you amidst us, and we are so enlightened that we will need one more session to have all the thoughts which you have shared with us. And the one thing which you have shared, Maharaj, thoughts are your guests. It really showed some light how you should think and why we should think in the positive way.
True.
Pranams, Maharaj. Thank you very much on behalf of our institution. Namaste and pranams to you.
Namaste. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best.
Namaste. Pranams.
Namaste.
So I've shared the feedback link. You can fill it up and then you can log out.
Jagdish sir, I just wanted to understand.
Yes.
The link remains the same. The feedback links remains the same, right?
Yes. But when
There
you
is no
select the
change.
session and the day.
Yes, the session will be different.
Yes.
1, 2, and 3 session,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Don't worry about the feedback and the register number. Register number is already shared with you. And you must be knowing that only registered participants' attendance will be automatically given by AICTE portal. Okay. Don't bother about it. Your numbers and names are already there. I will have to just enter your attendance each day. That's all.
Thank you so much.
So by either way, you can either through chat box or in the WhatsApp group. I will share the feedback link. and you
Okay.
can post the feedback.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you so much.
Sir, Jagdish sir,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
on the 5th day, do we have any test to give up, sir?
Yes, yes, assessment.
Yeah, okay.
I've been reminding this from the first day, day one.
Yeah, that's
So also, sorry to interrupt Hima ma'am. Jagdish sir, the test, will it be sent as a Google form or we have to be present physically here? I mean, at 2:30 we log in and we log out at 4:30.
Yes, we will be sending a link, that's for sure. 2:30 we will be joining because we'll have assessment followed by the feedback as well. Validation and feedback.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, we will just see how it works, but you should be there.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, where from I should get this feedback link?
I've already posted in the chat box, sir. Just
Chat box only you have mentioned day 1, session 3. This will be the link.
yes, it's day 1, session 3.
Session 3. Okay,
Yes,
sir.
just now I posted it. Kindly look at it.
Okay, sir. I saw it. Yes, FDP on achieving the leadership. That email
No, no,
ID.
in the chat box. Just look at the
Chat box. Yes, from chat box I got it. That you are wanting the email ID and date, then your session, then register number. Session
yes, you are
means
just
1, 2, 3. Which one I have to put?
no. This is session 3, right? In day
Session
1,
session 1 I have not placed any feedback.
you can place it. You can fill it twice, the form.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you.
One
Sir.
for session 1 and one for session 3.
Okay.
Jagdish sir.
Yes,
Hello.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please.
Sir, on Friday last day